And we're back. It's all new episode of News You Can Use, a podcast by PA Stands Up about Pennsylvania, people, power, and politics. I'm your host, Edwin, and I go by he, they pronouns, and I'm Director of Narrative Strategies here at PASU.
And I'm Hannah, they, she, the digital organizer here at PA Stands Up. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome indeed. So much has happened since our last episode, but let's kick it off on a high note. Can we take a moment and celebrate a couple big wins?
Absolutely. On November 4th, progressive candidates won across the board. I'm thrilled to see candidates like Mamdani and Wilson win in New York and Seattle, but I'm even happier to report that Pennsylvania voted to retain our Democratic state Supreme Court justices.
That's a huge win for the Commonwealth. Retaining the justices who have consistently upheld voting rights, rights for workers, and reproductive freedoms makes a huge difference in our ability to protect each other from the whims of this failed federal administration.
This is huge. I know we've said it 1,000 times, but voting matters, and this is why. Pennsylvanians showed up and showed out to keep each other safe. And if we keep up the momentum, we can get candidates elected at all levels of government who work with our communities to make sure we all have what we need to thrive.
This is why every little bit helps. Thank you to everyone who knocked doors, made phone calls, sent reminder texts. Thank you all for your hard work. Working together for a common goal adds up, and when we fight, we win.
And speaking of wins, 16 of our endorsed candidates won their races last month.
Hearing that number really gives me hope. It took hardworking folks across our chapters to make those wins happen.
And it's just as important now to keep up that good work. Fighting for a Pennsylvania that works for all of us doesn't stop after the election. Join a chapter or make a contribution, attend an upcoming event, and contact your reps to make your voice heard. It's time to keep pushing for the future where we all live with safety, dignity, and the resources we need and deserve.
And hopefully, through this work, we can show people that party isn't the issue here, it's humanity and community. On that topic, I'd like to see Fetterman held accountable for caving to the Trump administration and betraying working people next time he's up for re-election. Instead of standing up for us and demanding the affordable health care we all need, Fetterman abandoned Pennsylvanians and obeyed the Trump administration, billionaires, and wealthy healthcare insurance executives in advance. I know our producer Liz has been calling and yelling at him and sending him all the things via email.
We love Liz in this house. And frankly, we all need to do that, right? It's up to all of us to hold our elected officials accountable and make our voices heard one way or another, whether it's email, a phone call, or an in person action. It's billionaires against the working class, and I'm not on the billionaire side, believe it or not.
Hell no. Me neither. Speaking of money, more than 4.5 months after it was due, the state of Pennsylvania finally passed the state budget. We want better wages for essential caregivers, money for working Pennsylvanians who struggle to make ends meet, funding for schools so teachers aren't forced to buy their own classroom supplies. But on the other hand, and it's a big on the other hand, this budget still failed to deliver on issues Pennsylvanians care about and resources we all need. There's no money for public transit, and the Commonwealth withdrew from the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which previously helped us lower energy costs, reducing deadly emissions, and started charting a path forward for clean energy futures.
The affordability crisis is still affecting all of us, and this budget doesn't do enough to negate the effects of the Trump administration's high tariffs, inflation rates, and slash federal services. We deserve more, PA, and we'll come together to demand better policies now and a budget with real plans for safe and affordable housing, lower utility bills, reliable transit, fully funded public schools, and more next budget season, because we know that we have the power to win what we deserve.
Our politicians were elected to serve us and represent us. And the thing to keep in mind, despite all their bluster, is that they're still just people. Technically, anyone can run for many local offices, but I'd much rather put my vote behind someone whose values align with mine. Some of my favorite candidates and elected officials have been organizers.
For sure. Izzy, for one. Izzy Smith Waddell, Pennsylvania House District 49th Rep, got his start in organizing. After college, his nonprofit work in behavioral health and drug and alcohol rehabilitation helped some of the most vulnerable in the community. He was a program specialist at Lancaster County Homeless Coalition. He launched Refresh Lancaster, a mobile hygiene unit with showers, social services, and medical attention. He was a community organizer for striking Kellogg's workers, as well as for Pennsylvania educators demanding fair funding for schools and a Lancaster Stands Up endorsed candidate.
All of that before he became president of Lancaster City Council in 2017. There Izzy helped secure the largest investment in affordable housing and lead removal in the city of Lancaster's history. He championed the decriminalization of cannabis, a completely revamped use of force policy for police officers, and increased police accountability in response to community requests.
Because of Izzy's background in organizing, he was much more in tune with community needs. He started on the front lines and now he's the rep for Lancaster's 49th. Per
Yes.
his page on the PA House website, he aims as a legislator to correct the Commonwealth's laws that favor giant corporations, lobbyists, and a status quo that hurts working families.
Exactly the kind of person we need in office. Those are the changes we want to see across the board in every district.
And there's an opportunity for that. There are a handful of seats up for grabs in 2026. I know, where did the year go? But 2026 is just around the corner. We've got primaries on May 19th next year, and up for grabs will be governor, all 17 U.S. House of Representatives seats, half the state Senate seats, and all seats in the state House. Big year.
Big, big year. Some of those seats may seem small time, but the biggest change really starts from the lowest levels. The fewer billionaire sympathizers on city councils and on local school boards, the better. Building a base has to start from the ground up, and every role is important to the foundation.
We won a lot of seats last month, and we can keep the momentum and really see some change. The big question: how do we actually turn organizers into candidates who win? Brad, Shannon, and Maria are joining us today to talk us through why it's so important for our candidates to be based in organizing and how that pipeline works. Welcome to the pod, friends. If you don't mind just introducing yourselves with your name, pronouns, role or title, background, and your involvement with PA Stands Up. Brad, let's start with you.
My name is Brad Chambers. My pronouns are he/him, and I am a candidate who is running for Pennsylvania's 41st State House District. And I have been to many PA Stands Up events. I've been endorsed by PA Stands Up in the past and hoping to be again in the future. And I align with their political values, as I think that there needs to be a lot of quality of life changes for everyone in Pennsylvania.
Love it. Thank you, Brad. Shannon, you want to tell folks a little bit about you?
I mean, there's not too much to say. My name is Shannon Groshek. She, her. I'm the campaign manager for Fern Laird in the 120th MPA. I they've endorsed Fern in the past. PA stands up, and I think I'm a member. Maria can straighten that out. Let me know. But basically, yeah, they're a great organization, honestly, for anybody running grassroots. That's
Thank
really
you
it.
so much. Appreciate you, Shannon. And Maria, in case folks don't remember you, give
Hey
them a
y'all.
little bit of background.
Yeah, it's been a minute. My name's Maria Andrews. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the director of power building here at PA Stands Up. I started off getting really inspired by a candidate himself, Bernie Sanders, back in 2015 and 2019 when he was running. And that led me to start organizing in Northeastern PA, starting our NEPA Stands Up chapter. So I'm all about organizing, organizing people to win real things. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Love it. All right, friends, let's get right into it. What was the moment that you realized running for office or helping folks run for office was the next step in caring for your community? Maria, you already talked a little bit about it, so let's start with you.
Yeah. Well, I was asked to run someone's campaign in 2020, Tara Zarinsky for State House, and I realized it was really important because this was coming out of Bernie was running the primary in 2019, and he had dropped out after the Democratic Party booted him out. And I was really inspired by the amount of really like people excited about his campaign and his populist agenda, and seeing just like how people were so down for these like common sense affordability measures. And so I thought, what could I do in my role? What responsibility I could take? Well, when I was asked to run this campaign for State House in the Lehigh Valley, I was like, okay, this is something I can do locally to make an impact. And although I felt like I didn't know what I was doing, I was down to take that risk. And I'm really glad that I did.
I love that so much. I'm really glad that you did too. And now we get to organize together. Brad, what about you?
So for me, it wasn't necessarily one moment. I grew up to a single parent, and I grew up, basically in the mud at times. And my mom, even despite that, she very educated woman, multiple degrees. So I know that in our schools, our public schools, we don't always talk about the Black experience and Black history and what it means to be a minority in America. But I already knew that because I was the child of an educator. And so I already had ideas about the world and my place in it. And I wanted to do something about it, but I mostly spent my time trying to fend more myself, to get employment, to keep a roof over my head. I wasn't always successful at that, but it kind of manifested with me arguing with racists online. That's pretty much what it was. Like, yeah, I would go into, back before the internet got more heavily moderated, places like Yahoo, Chat, uh, real cesspools. But I got a call from a friend of mine, and this is after I had gotten more established. I had had some luck and things were going well for me. And he asked me if I would run for office. And I said yes. And things just kind of came together. And I felt that I was good at it. And I felt that this was the way that I could push back against a lot of the darkness that I had seen in my youth and in this country currently. And that is what I would use my power for, if you can call it that.
That's so real. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of people are going to resonate with that. I think we can get caught in that feeling of hopelessness and that like the overwhelm of like, well, what can I do? And you actually took those feelings and put them into action. So, love that. Shannon, what about you? What was that moment like for you?
Uh, I mean, my entire life has been political. I haven't been like in any kind of organized structure. I'm more of an outlier with that. I've been dealing with mutual aid, whether I've always been a part of organizing. When I was younger, with protests, down in Philly, I saw a lot of stigma behind people with mental health and addiction and the institutions that were failing them, that were just cattle herding because of insurances. So I started my own nonprofit to level the playing field with quality of care. We don't rely on any outside money or grants. We're fully self-sustaining, so I don't have to deal with, any of the red tape. We're trying to give people help. I would say the pivotal moment that put me into this sort of establishment setting with dealing with like the Dem Party and running somebody would be when Roe v. Wade got overturned. Um, my intuition said to just kind of start with the underground network for getting women out of PA, because at the time SB 106 was on the floor and we thought it was going to be banned. But I ran into my candidate at a protest that one of my good friends had brought me to, because I was obviously very upset over Roe v. Wade. And this candidate just won a write-in against an incumbent. And we kind of just learned together what it was like to run as a non-establishment over the last few years. And I think that's it. Yep, pretty much.
That's awesome. Yeah. And kind of in a similar vein there, what surprised you most about working on that first campaign, or in Brad's case, being the candidate yourself? But Shannon, you were already kind of getting there. So I want to start with
Oh,
you.
the lack of support, 100%. I went into it naive. Like I said, I was always an outlier. I was a non-affiliate. I wasn't a registered Dem. So I had assumed that the parties kind of had their stuff together and that they were going to support anybody that was in their party affiliation. Um, and not even just like primarying people. I mean, just like if it was just in the general, at least back them. I understand the idea of keeping it competitive and sharpening people's skills and all that jazz. But going into the general, the lack of support because you weren't a part of the agenda. And I don't even mean statewide. Honestly, I mean locally. the local parties, the pettiness, the lack of staying focused on the mission and the objectives, the purity tests from everybody, the lack of resources. They sort of sit on their resources like smog on his gold. And unless you are going to adhere to their every wish, you don't get any of those resources allocated to you. That was what was surprising, and the resistance I got within the party. I'm running in my candidate runs in a red district, and I have had much friendlier reception from the opposition, from Republicans, than I have from my own party. That really, I would say, was a culture shock for me. I come from a mutual aid background where we all try to like be all inclusive, and we're really, I don't know, I don't want to say the word sensitive, but we're aware of each other's needs, and it's no issue like being resourceful for somebody, or if you're not able to, you say no, but it's kind. Um, Going into the Dem Party, the level of pettiness and power grabs was insane. The amount of summarizes it, is shocking. That to myself, to be honest, that was the hardest part. And if you want a little hope at the end of all that, there are really good organizations though. It's just, you got to find them. Like, so PA Stands Up is definitely one, and I'm not a easily one person. Like, you have to kind of prove yourself. I kind of give people a little bit of a hard time. Like, I measure, I test them a wee bit, but I mean, PA Stands Up has been consistent and supportive, emotional, like in any which way. And they always ask what your needs are. They don't just say, oh, this is what we got, take what we got. They always say, okay, what are your needs? Let me see if I can get there. They're really good about not being cookie cutter with their candidates. So I really appreciate them. Another shout out would be to Campaign in a Box. They came from Bernie's team as well. They're a consulting firm. They're very reasonably priced for people that are grassroots. They come with someone to help you with field, help you with messaging, to help you with strat. I mean, everything. You meet with them every week. They're incredible. They run all different races. So there are like organizations out there that are specific for grassroots. So if the local party is giving you a hard time and you feel disheartened, because it does kind of break your spirit a little bit at first, just pick yourself back up and find your friendlies. They are out there, and just to piggyback on the organization of it, if people didn't have a passion for organizing, then these places wouldn't exist. And so it's that very passion that allows everyone to have all these resources in spite of the challenges the local parties put up.
I think you got at something really important, which was that, like, we are not the Democratic establishment at PA Stands Up. That's not what we stand for. We stand for working people. And
Right.
that's why, we want to help folks like you and like your candidates, because we have that goal of actually getting resources to working people. We don't have a goal of upholding the Democratic Party's, bullshit bureaucracy that's been holding us back for so many years. And I'd be interested to kind of contrast, Brad, your experience as the candidate with Shannon's. What was, the most surprising thing for you running for the first time?
So for me, it might have been more internal or esoteric. The more that people invested in me, people showing up to canvases, donating money, like I felt like once I passed $150,000 raised, I started to kind of feel like a really deep sense of responsibility and obligation towards the people that were supporting me. I know like there are some politicians who kind of just expect that, and they abuse their supporters. But having experienced it myself, it's unconscionable. Like I do a lot of call time. I have very ambitious fundraising goals, but I have grandmas on disability who I'm calling, and they're saying that they support me, and they're giving me $50 that they don't have. So I think it would be monstrous to not perform the best that you possibly can for someone who's willing to do that for you. And that's why I go as hard as I do.
I love that so much. We're running right now our end of year campaign, and we're talking to folks across the Commonwealth who are, willing to give us that small dollar donation to keep the movement going. That's what grassroots organizing is. And we've been talking a lot about the responsibility that we have to each other in doing this work. Maria and I have recently been talking about this. So I'm curious, Maria, for you, what was surprising for you working on your first campaign, and maybe even in your position now, as a director of power building? What has surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really surprised me was like, oh, you really are just learning as you go. When I was asked to run the campaign, I was like, I'm not a campaign manager. I can't run the campaign. Um, but I was really encouraged by this person who asked me, like, you have all the wisdom you need. You will figure it out. Like, you will learn and be stronger for it. And from my experience meeting legislators in Harrisburg, because I worked for the legislature and I could meet state reps, I realized, like, oh, you don't have to be like the smartest person to run for office or to win. So I was really motivated to kind of like put that imposter syndrome in the rear view. And we were running this campaign at the height of COVID, so we had to be really adaptive. And I think the most successful campaigns and candidates are teams that can be adaptive to the conditions that we're living in, whether it is COVID, whether it is authoritarianism, whatever crisis we're navigating. No one like has all the answers, but collectively, you can really accomplish a lot. And I think with campaigns and candidates, like a lot of times it's easy to see them as like these celebrities that kind of like know it all and have it all figured out. But the strongest campaigns have really strong teams of people who are really invested. And that's the whole organizing component of it, right? If you're a candidate or a campaign manager who is bringing an organizing lens through what you're doing, you're trying to actually build something beyond just like a popularity contest of like, hey, my candidate has all the answers and is Jesus Christ, right? It's about what you're fighting for as a collective, what you want to see in your communities beyond just, like Shannon was talking about, this like purity politics. It's like, okay, and I think that's the frustrating part of like the petty dynamics that exist in so many spaces. It's like, okay, but what are we actually doing this for? Are we doing it for someone's ego? Or are we
Right.
doing it because we want real tangible things for people? And that's why people get disillusioned by politics, right? And so I don't like the phrase, and this is going to be controversial for some people. I don't like the phrase when people are like, oh, well, I'm running for office, but like I'm not into politics. Like this isn't about politics. Because ultimately politics is just about people, right? It's just about organizing people so that we can get real things for our communities. And and that's something that you kind of learn as you go, is that when we're fighting for our communities, it's not just about this like brand of a candidacy. Like you can spend 5 hours in Canva at midnight designing the perfect logo, but that won't actually win your campaign. It is about like building that community where everyone's invested in not just the brand of the person, right? Like it's not that everyone is just obsessed with Zoran, even though he's like super cute and we love him. It's that people want to freeze the rent. People want zero to not have to pay for buses, right? Like he's promising a vision of how our communities can be better. Yeah, so that's my answer.
I love that, Maria. You started hitting on this, I think, like how your community organizing skills and values influence how you ran a campaign and worked on a campaign and your positions on the issues impacting your community. Um, you know, wanting to actually build something, not just run this one campaign. It's a lot bigger than that. Is that how
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
connects for
I
you?
mean, I remember the night after the election when Tara ended up losing. It was 2020. And so what, Biden got elected, so like people were mostly happy, but we were upset obviously because she lost. And we were so exhausted because running a campaign is like running a marathon and a sprint. And at the end of that campaign, I was like, okay, what did we actually build? Was it just about Tara Zirinsky, this character, or was it about something greater? So I was reflecting a lot on that. But I'm actually really curious, Shannon. I would love to hear about you, like I would say you're like a natural organizer.
Right.
And I would love for you to share a little bit about how you brought that into how you ran the campaign last cycle and how you organized people who would be like directly impacted by what Fern wants to do. Yeah, if you could speak a little bit to like how you were organizing your people to show up.
I mean, basically, like, I started organizing because of the pettiness, and I was like, you know what? I'm not to be cross, but I was just like, F this. Like, I don't have time for it. I have 2 daughters. I'm here for the reasons, and I'm not here for those ones. So I started reaching out to other women that were in my area, specifically rural women, because we have a lot of rural ground here. And I was like, I mean, Hannah, who is a huge part of this, has been with me since beginning. She met Fern at a protest after Fern had met me, and we've been in this together. And we both reached out to our circles, and we started pulling people in. And we're like, okay, well, where are you comfortable? What are you able to do? People were able to knock doors, a phone bank, raise money. Everyone had different skill sets that we just capitalized on, and it was all women in our team, except for like our number one door knocker, Ken. And then and that really like helped me out because I didn't know the state house had metrics they measured by, right? Like the first time we ran, we only had 3 months of like $10,000. So I didn't know any of that. Going into 2024, I had like a long conversation with HDCC, like, okay, well, what defines viability to you? Because I'm not educated in running a campaign. I'm just doing what I thought, like, you know, what you see on TV or movies, basically, is what I was mirroring. What I thought was running a campaign. And they went over the metrics of fundraising, you know, name ID, and doors knocked and phone calls made. That's their evidence that you're viable. So okay, fair enough, because it's an investment. I get it. You can't just invest in anybody. Although I was a wee bit bitter because I do think passion and work ethic should go into that, but that's how they measure that. So whatever. So I was like, oh, cool. I love a competition. So I think I did well. I did really well. We did great with fundraising. We did great. To backpedal a little bit, to fundraise when you're kind of being stonewalled by your local community, reaching outside that community is imperative because you're running on issues like, so if you're endorsed by Planned Parenthood, you're running for the working class. There's so many issues. Take your pick. We have a buffet of things that need to be solved. And so we reached out nationally down to DC. I mean, just like everywhere. And we were able to raise like a good amount. We raised like over 150,000, which I thought was really good for, you know, I mean, we don't have lots of money ourselves. Like, you know, I mean, so we're able to find those resources. We're able to get over the doors knocked. I don't even remember. I know I sent you the numbers, Maria, but I know we went over the goal of how many doors we had knocked, how many phone calls, like we blasted all the metrics because I just wanted to prove how viable we were. And in the end of it, we gained 8.5 points in a red district. So we only need just under 2,500 votes to close it this time around. But back to what you're saying with organizing. So this time around, I need even more people. I want a more extensive field plan. I do want to touch base with people more. I personally love knocking Republican doors and having those hard conversations. I think they're challenging and I think they're important. They're for a bigger picture. Like, even if my candidate doesn't get in, I want to plant that seed and kind of undo a little bit of that propaganda that's been going on nationally. So just as my own personal due diligence, I like to have that conversation. But I want an extensive field plan. I want to knock a lot of doors. So the girls and I started a Facebook group called the Blue Club, and it's kind of anonymous because some federal workers are in there, yada, yada. In the last 8 weeks, we've had 140 something members join, all women. And these are local women. We meet every 2 weeks, and in a monthly turnout, we have over 70 people that show up. We have a Christmas party actually tonight. We were able to raise the money. We provide a babysitter for single moms. We provide transportation. It's a group conscious vote. There's no chair. It's decentralized. We do have like administrative positions that like kind of do the agenda and print out paperwork, but nothing gets passed without the majority vote by everybody. We've now formed subcommittees off of that. One is going to be a PAC, and the other is going to be, we're going to have community outreach, and we're going to have environmental issues for like data center and like native plants and things along those natures. So this way, everybody that joins, and we can all form like Voltron when the other person, like the other committee needs help. Okay, well, the PAC will jump over and help people with the food drive. Okay, the PAC needs help with door knocking. It's a day of action. Okay, we're all going to jump in and sign up. So we've all like expressed frustration about the party and what's not being available specifically to women in our area. And or anybody not a part of, like, I'm going to call it a cult because they feel very culty. They're very blue-pilled over here. So if we're not a part of that, we're independent thinkers and we critically question things because you should question anybody in authority. I don't care what party you are. We're not going to be ostracized or shunned or excommunicated. Like, this is a ground for that. Like, we are able to disagree, or we're able to bring up points of contention and handle it like adults. So all that helps not only Fern going into the state race, but we just got elected a county council member. We also got somebody on school board, and we just made history. She's the first person that ran on the Dem ticket that has won in the Back Mountain, solely as a Dem. And she was up against a white male cop as a Republican in a rural area, and we won.
That's amazing. That's
So
amazing, Shannon.
yeah, we had all young women at the polls. It was incredible.
And it's clear that it's not just about like we poo-pooing Democrats or Republicans. It's like actually creating the systems and doing the organizing that you want to be seeing, like taking responsibility for it.
100%.
I want to hear Brad's answer. I know I'm not the facilitator of this conversation, but I'm sorry, Hannah. I'm chiming in because I know Shannon, you have a lot to share. But Brad, speaking of knocking a million doors, I hear that you have knocked many, many, many doors. And I know it's not just about the doors, it's about the conversations. But Hannah's question was like, how did community organizing skills and values influence how you ran your campaign? So I'm curious what came up for you.
Community organizing is the backbone of how I would approach public service. I am a roll your sleeves up and get in the situation, lead from the front kind of guy. And that's one of the reasons why I've been the top door knocker in Lancaster County for 2 years in a row now. And yes, I knock a lot of doors, but the doors are a means to an end. I don't do it so people can say that I'm the top door knocker. That is good for someone who is running for state house, but I'm trying to persuade people. I spent a lot of my campaign last year talking to Republicans, same as Fern and Shannon probably. And I was able to build a collage of MAGA voters who would not support Biden or Kamala under any circumstances, but would put my sign up next to Trump's and vote for me. So I think that breaking those barriers, even if they won't go all the way, it has allowed my area, like East Hempfield went blue in 2025. It's one of the largest areas in my district, and it's for the first time in history. So I think it's been a succession of continuing to talk to people, continuing to erode that sort of apprehension towards Democrats or progressives, whatever you want to call it. I think staying in people's faces year after year is strategic. And I think it is what we need to do to win elections long-term in red areas.
And Brad, how did having those conversations with folks from all parties inform the issues, like your stances on issues that are impacting your community?
Well, I think what I discovered is that affordability and things not working, people attribute different reasons to why they don't work. Some of them correct, some of them very incorrect. But what I do, because I'm obviously Black, I'm in Lancaster County, I have locks, and people, it's a double-edged sword for me. Like, people have preconceptions about me, but they also are going to remember me no matter what. So there is that element of it. And when I start talking to them about what I can do for them, I start asking them if they're pleased with the current environment. And I call it a status quo check. And I think that's like one of the most effective things that you can do to a Republican who is automatically apprehensive. Well, like, how are things going for you now? And then, well, they suck. And I'm like, well, did you know that the person who has been in charge here forever has been a Republican? So if you have issues with how things are going, you're going to have to point at that person. I think I have some solutions and I can rattle them off to you if you're interested, but I do think we need a change, and they would agree with that. And that's how you get your foot in the door.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about listening to what people need and finding that common ground, because regardless of what party you're affiliated with, we have so much more in common, than we have, differences. And it sounds like, Shannon, you were able to do that as well with Fern. Talk about a natural born organizer. Wow. How can elected officials do what you do, basically staying grounded in your community and what your community needs once they're in the room where the decisions are being made? And how do we hold them accountable? You were talking about that too, and I completely agree. We need to do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think if you don't naturally have that as a mindset, then you should second guess whether or not what your motives are for running for office. Sorry. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe you're not built for this. There's other ways to contribute to the community other than lead. You can lead in maybe different ways, but not politically. I think when you're making decisions that really impact people's lives, I mean, you really got to take a good self-reflection as to why you're doing it. So for me, I mean, with us building rapport, I mean, we're willing to call out corruption. I don't care. Like, I don't have a stake in the game. No one has strings to me. So like, if I see, I mean, this just happened this last cycle. We had someone running on the Dem ticket as a supervisor in the back mountain that's unbelievably corrupt with tons of empirical evidence. And I didn't not just show support for her, but I spoke up about it. And so did my candidate. And we had consequences to pay for that, but we were willing to take them because the greater consequence is that we can't go to sleep at night knowing that we appease the overlords, and get whatever crumbs they want to throw us. No, like the community should know if they have somebody in there taking their taxpayer dollars and utilizing it for self-interest. I think because we walk the walk, we're not fake. I think people see that authenticity and it resonates and it's refreshing to them. So party aside, I think at the end of the day, nobody wants to be ripped off and everybody wants to feel seen and heard.
100%. 100%. Brad, what are your plans for this? Say you are elected, how are you going to stay grounded in the community that you are clearly very grounded in now? And how can we hold you accountable?
So I mentioned leading from the front, and most of the events, and I do throw events here and there that I do. Like I just came off doing a turkey giveaway for Thanksgiving. We had 55,000 people thrown off of food assistance in Lancaster County. So I wanted to meet that need. And I think it is really important for our candidates that they are showing up for people when it matters, not just because you have an election to run. And I live by that. I was able to get 100 different Thanksgiving meals to people who showed up to attend the event. And I think that's a necessary thing. And I'm a known quantity in the community. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but people can approach me. I'm very approachable. And I do think that there aren't that many guardrails for malfeasance in politics. I'm going to be real with you. I think you can get in there and do kind of whatever you want. I mean, look at who the president is.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I have to lead that way. And I do think that leaders should be comfortable with being led at times. I think that is something that you need to have in you to lead responsibly.
100%. That's co-governance at the end of the day. That's you not governing for your community, but with your community.
Yep. Nobody knows
and
everything.
Exactly. Maria was saying that earlier, right? Like we can't all be experts in everything, and you have to swallow your pride enough to hear from people. And Maria, I'm curious about your answer because we've been in Harrisburg together. You're familiar with holding our elected officials accountable.
Yeah. And that looks different for different electeds depending on your relationship with them. I'm sure if we call up Representative Brad Chambers, he'll answer our call, right? Because he sees the value in organizing. He sees the value in PA Stands Up and Lancaster Stands Up. That's not true for most legislators. So we have to prove our value. And the way we do that is by organizing a large base of people who care about things and who are the constituents that are going to put that pressure on. Whether it's inside pressure, outside, we can talk tactics another day. Whether it's a personal meeting, whether it's a rally, letters to the editor, there's all different ways to move your legislator and hold them accountable. And like I said, it looks different, but the only way you do that is by people in numbers, right? Because if I'm just one person or just you're listening into this podcast. You're like, okay, what can I do? My legislator is not going to care about me. Okay, well, what if you show up to their
Yeah.
office with 20 other people? Then they'll care about you. And if they still don't listen to you, what we do is what we call impose political costs. So um, when I got my start organizing in Northeastern PA, I was told, someone reached out to me. She was a parent, president of our PTA, and she reached out about the school closure that was being proposed for Bancroft Elementary in Scranton. And we got organized. And long story short, because the school board voted to close that elementary school, we ended up running people for school board, and 3 of them got elected to school board. In fact, they're still on the board. So we imposed political costs. We said, okay, you're going to close our schools. Guess what? We're going to replace you. But you can only do that if you have people power. So holding our legislators accountable looks different depending on those relationships, but it all comes down to relationships, connectivity with one another, and then building and continuing those relationships with legislators once they're in office. Because a lot of the times I've heard legislators say this, like, you elect us, and then what happens after election day? Like,
Uh-huh.
you forget about us. But we don't want like legislators that are aligned with us. They don't want us to forget about them. They want us to like continue to govern with them beyond election day.
Yeah, it goes both ways in a way. We need our electeds to stay grounded in community, but as the community, we also have to keep up those relationships with them. And if they're not going to come to the community, we are going to come to them, just like you were saying. And something I'm curious about, speaking of people power, who showed up? Brad, I want to start with you for this. Who showed up for you in your campaign that you were your campaign personally, but for Shannon, like one that you were working on that you didn't expect, and what did their support look like?
So my campaign was women were almost in all of the leadership positions, and I do think that women. Now, I'm not pandering, but I do think that women are generally better at campaign work for the most part. And one of the things that the people who were working on my campaign did was like recognize that I was kind of getting a little bit beat down, and I'm fine sharing this, but I was knocking a ton of doors. I knocked 8,000 personally last year, and I ended up losing about 60 pounds. So one of the people on my campaign started like cooking meals for me and like calling me like when because I would get home at like 9. Whenever it got dark is when I would stop and would tell me to come over and get the meal from her. Her name is Amy Kellers, and she just led 2 candidates on Columbia Borough Council to victory. Well, they will be taking office in January, and a really good friend of mine. I want to give another shout out to Liz Bender, who just flipped the Hempfield School Board and won the East Hempfield Township Supervisor Board as well. Has been taking care of a lot of the back end things for me. When things go wrong, she was the one who would step in and ensure that things don't go off the rails, and wouldn't leave it to me. So I appreciate both of them a lot. And I am excited that they are coming back to help me again next year.
How did it feel to have folks, show up for you in that way, recognize that you needed support, and, you having to take that leap and accept the support?
I felt like it was too good for me, to be honest, but I'm really grateful. I felt blessed. Yeah.
That was so heartwarming. I'm like, that actually made my day to hear. Shannon, what about you? Who showed up, like in Fern's campaign, for example, who you didn't expect? What did that look like?
I mean, one of the people would be Phyllis Mundy. She was the first elected state rep in our district in ever. And she showed up for us. She was retired from politics. She's an older lady, pretty active feminist, but she kind of stepped away from politics. She's known as very uncorruptible. She showed up for us in photo ops at debates when we needed her. She would just know. She did a commercial for us. She's very, very popular in our district. And her having like seen our hard work and believing in us meant like the world to me. And then another fellow would have been, I think he was the Majority House Leader, Todd Eachus. He's a big environmentalist. we met him at one of our fundraisers. I'm not even sure how he got there or got notice of it, to be honest. He showed up and really helped explain to me personally, like what being a campaign manager like looked like even further. Like he took me from 101 to 102. And these people always pick up the phone for us, and to this day. And I don't know, I could think of those guys, but there's so many, honestly. All the people that came out, work the polls that don't really get involved in politics. Just, I don't want to say one's more important than the other. It's everybody collectively as a whole that fueled the campaign. I don't think we could have done without them.
Yeah, it
You know,
takes everybody's work and everybody's effort and everybody's experience to get there. Maria, what about you? Whether it was a campaign or in your organizing, who has showed up for you that you didn't expect?
I was so entranced by everyone's answers. I wasn't even thinking about what my answer would be. Um, Honestly, a surprising one was at the time Rick Krajewski was also running for office, and he had just won his primary, so he had he was definitely going to be the legislator. So I connected with his campaign manager, which was Pele, who like later would go on to be my supervisor. But I connected with him. He gave me such great tips of like things to ask for when you get endorsed that I had no idea, because I had no idea what I was doing. But how do you figure out what to do? You ask people questions. So I was really grateful of other campaigns that extended their advice to me.
I love other comms people. Always. Can't thank them enough for everything that I have learned from them myself. So I totally get that. Just ask. Most people do want to help, is a big lesson I think we can all learn from literally everybody's answers here. And I want to talk about what barriers you all think keep people from running for office. How do we break those down? Maria, this reminded me of you talking about imposter syndrome a little bit, so I want to start with you.
Yeah, I'll say like two things, and I'm sure Shannon and Brad will expand on this. One is barriers for people can be self-doubt, like particularly women, particularly people of color. There's a lot of things of like, well, should it be me? I'm not the right person. It should be someone smarter. Like there's all these stories that we're told, ways that we are raised to think that like, no, you just have to be a wealthy, straight, white, cis dude to run for office, because that's what we typically see. So self-doubt can get in the way. I could go on about that. But the second thing I'll say is also support systems. Like this is a very real barrier. If you don't have Amy cooking for you for dinner, like what are you going to do to take care of yourself? That's really hard. If you don't have childcare, if you're a single mom, how are you going to run for office and be knocking doors every day if you have kids at home? How are you going to have the emotional support? Being a candidate is, from what I've heard, excruciating. Like having your public image out there and defending yourself, it's a lot. So what emotional support systems do you have? It takes a village is very real, just like how like being a mom in this society is really hard. I would imagine like being a candidate, similar barriers. So those are the two that come to mind.
Definitely, that makes sense. And since we have a candidate in the room, Brad, what are your thoughts?
I'm not going to compare it to being a mom. I do think that is, a very special thing. But you do also have a lot of responsibility to the public as a candidate, especially if you get elected. I think time is one of the biggest barriers. I work a full-time job, and don't ask me how I was able to do some of the stuff that I was able to do, but I did. And I also think that commitment, or depending on the candidate, lack thereof, can be a problem. I personally believe, and I'm willing to say that if you're somebody who doesn't knock doors until GOTV, you are not a serious candidate. And I don't like anybody in Columbia who's running. I discourage it very highly. So you have to go out there and you need to talk to the people, and you need to convince them that you're somebody worth supporting. And that takes time. Some people, like if you have 2 kids, if you have extenuating circumstances with employment or maybe your area. I know like there are some people who are running in California where there's areas where they literally can't knock them at certain times of year because they'll go out there and fry. because it's too hot. I think there's a lot of things that could get in your way, but you have to account for those things and make it happen some way.
Yeah, and a lot of the time making that happen is the village that Maria talked about. Shannon, what barriers do you think keep people from running, and how do we break them down?
Well, I mean, the three components I think we already pretty much touched on, but I would say, yeah, obviously the person's mindset, where they're at with their confidence and that sort of thing. I would say fundraising. My candidate was in foster home and didn't have the network or the close network that a lot of people with opportunity and privilege had. So when the HCC is like, well, you got to fundraise, you ask this one, that one. And my Fern was like, I went to 17 different schools. I don't have close friends like that. You know what I mean? So she didn't even have the resources of close relationships because of, how she was brought up and trauma. You have your own traumas that maybe you don't build huge social networks after you learn not to trust the system. I mean, poverty is trauma. So that was a thing I think that stops people. And so between those three things, I would say then your own mindset is fundraising, and then your people network. If you're introverted, I think those would be the three things I would assess when going into a candidacy, to try to build as a foundation and then go, just to make your life a wee bit easier. I think those would be the focus is.
That makes sense. And there are also all of the societal barriers that keep people from running. We know that the majority of electeds are still white men, and part of continuing to make space for representative leadership is talking about who should run for office. And, in terms of running a campaign, like Maria was talking about, or running for office, you don't need to have a specific job or education or experience to run. And people from all walks of life have something to offer. What are some qualities of someone who would be a good candidate? Maria, I want to start with you. I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah. And I realized when I was naming the barriers, I didn't name like how we break them down. And I want to acknowledge that like even if you do have self-doubt, you should still run for office. But to kind of break through some of that self-doubt is to, and Shannon spoke to this earlier, is like know your why, know why you're running for office. That's like your starting point when you're reflecting on like, should I run for office? Because if you have a really good why, that means that you care about something. And that means you can connect with other people who care about something. If your why is like, because I want a job that pays me well and I want to be amongst elite people. Okay, well, that's not a really good why, right? Like some people really don't know their why. They're just like, oh, well, I was always told I should run for office. But a lot of people know their why. They just aren't at the point where they feel ready to take the risk. So reflecting on that, connecting with other people can be a way to kind of suss out if you'd be a good candidate. I would say another thing that Brad also spoke to is like the willingness to do something challenging or uncomfortable. Like, yeah, it's pretty weird to just knock on someone's door and ask them what they care about and like share a little bit about yourself. Like when the leaves are crunching during GOTV, I'm like, ooh, it's door knocking season. But like I always have to remind myself like this is not normal to be doing this. So being a candidate it can be like kind of counterculture. So you have to be willing to do something uncomfortable, not knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable, like not thinking like, "Oh, I'm just going to wait until I'm ready to be this perfect person." It's like, no, you actually have to just struggle through this.
Mhm.
And Hannah, you talked about this too. Another great quality of someone who would be a good candidate is someone who's not just the loudest in the room, they could even be the quietest. Someone who's a really good listener. Like someone who is a really good listener can be really powerful. They can be very emotionally intelligent and connect with other people to really speak to their concerns. So that's really important. And it kind of like turns it on its head when you think about like who is a candidate. You might think about the person who's like the most eloquent, loudest speaker, the person who like is comfortable doing all these things, but it's like actually could be the opposite. And there are community leaders in our neighborhoods, in our communities that we might not necessarily think, oh, they would be a great elected office. But if you actually like stop and think about what it really means to be a leader, There are leaders amongst us everywhere. Brad, what about you?
So this was said already, but I do think it's really important to be a listener, because if you're not listening, how are you representing anybody? I think you need to be accountable. So when people have, especially your constituents, serious issues that they have with a vote that you took or with something that you said, you need to either apologize or you need to say why that you think what you said was justified. You need to have some conviction. You also need to believe in something other than yourself. I do think that, not to be too much of an idealist, although I am, I think that, well, the reason that I do this is because I'm trying to improve the quality of life for people that live here. I think that they have been left out to dry by the people that are in power. And when you see that in people who can't afford groceries, who can't afford childcare, who, if they get sick, their options are, just toughing it out or, potentially dying of a pre-existing illness. And those are things that I don't believe should continue to be problems in a civilized society. That's why I do what I do, to change those things. And that should be a reason. There should be a similar reason to that for why you're doing what you're doing. If it's not that, then some people get suspicious. And lastly, I think you need to be able to roll up your sleeves and actually go out and do the work yourself, because if you're not willing to do that, how really important is it? And that's it for me.
That all makes a lot of sense, Brad. It all comes back to that accountability to your community, because you're a working person. You are a community member. This affects you. This affects your neighbors. That's why you care, and why you're willing to, either justify an action or, hold yourself accountable. Um, and I think every candidate needs to be humble enough to admit a fault at some point and actually listen and change if needed. Shannon, what are some qualities that you've maybe observed in campaigns that you've worked on in the candidates that you helped?
I would say like the main things that I look for, because it's so subjective, right? Like it's all
Yeah.
about what we want as voters representing us. So like for me, I want honesty, humility, perseverance, and I think you have to you have to sort of embody a warrior spirit. If you're going to take that on, you have to be willing to put yourself on the front line. You're kind of I don't want to say the sacrificial lamb, but in a way you are. You're going to go out there and be that face in that front for the people that are underrepresented, and you need to be not necessarily the loudest in the room, but the most effective, because you
Mhm.
have a job to do, and maneuvering and being tactful, and being clever about how you're going to make these moves in a very dystopian government, I think is imperative.
Yeah.
Totally. And for folks listening to the pod who have that little voice in their head that's like, maybe I could do this. I feel really rooted in my community. I'm passionate about this. What is the first step that you'd tell them to take, Brad, after doing it yourself? Yeah, what's that first step?
The first step is, so if you don't know anything about anything, look around for whoever is some sort of Democrat in your local area, or maybe you want to join the Green Party, or maybe you're with working families. But locate that person, call that person, and ask them, how can you join? How can you get a taste of like what the day to day is like for this? And I think that is an effective way to kind of stress test your level of comfortability with doing this work. Of course, I did not do that, but I think it would be good to do. If you could just see what I'm like, all right, well, what is canvassing like? What is doing call time like? What is like coordinating a fundraiser like? What is it like to do a charity event? You can find out all of those things before you run if you work with people who are in your area.
Start learning those organizing skills is what I'm hearing. Maybe even at an org like PA Stands Up. I don't know.
PA
Shannon,
stands
what
up.
are your
Join right
thoughts?
now.
Yes, please do.
I mean, I would start with the why. You know what I mean? I would definitely start with the why and do like some serious self-reflection. I would also like assess how thick my skin is. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's about the people you represent. So like you are going to be, you know, people are going to come at you that don't want you, especially if you're a threat to the establishment. Learning that their personal attacks aren't really personal. It's what you represent that they're attacking. I think that's important. And obviously having conversations and checking where your resources and being able to fundraise, like the things I had already mentioned, I think they're the fundamentals you should see about developing those skills or people that can help you. But I do think it's a really personal journey, and I think it's important to have that support there. I've called Maria over meltdowns before. I have called many of people and just been on the floor. And it gets rough on some days. My candidate, we work so hard and we try to do a little bit of the number watching before we go to watch parties. So she could cry it out. And so she could have that space and that privacy to feel her feelings. And then she has to go put her smile on in front of the cameras. And then we talk about it after, you, I think if you're running a campaign for the campaign managers, especially, you need to understand that you're not just organizing people, but you are and your candidate, but you're usually the main support for your candidate. You're going to spend the most time with them, and having that space and availability for them. You have to be willing to make that sacrifice and kind of sometimes put yourself to the side, because it's a sacrifice you're both making, but in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's something I had to learn and grow into, for sure. And balance, I think, is doesn't exist. It's just like, look, man, everything's on pause. We got to focus on this, and then after election day, you could, you go into your cocoon and try to clean up the house and do all those things.
The
So,
sleep after election night goes so hard.
oh my gosh,
It
yeah.
really
I like
does.
literally don't even talk to people for like a month. I'm like, look, I'm on pause, guys.
Yeah, taking good care of yourself and having the support system to do that. Like you're saying, Maria, what's the first step that you tell people to take? Because you do this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, kind of answering the question of that barrier of self-doubt, like even if you're not 100% sure, what's helpful is to just talk to the people that you care about, like talk to your partner, your girlfriends, like talk to the people that you can confide in, because they can help kind of like gas you up. Like, yeah, you should run, or that's a great idea, or like, what do you think about this? Just being able to be vulnerable with other people about like, I want to run, but I don't know like who's going to take care of my dogs, right? Like just sharing what you want, what the fears are. Like, okay, I'm clear on my why, but like here's some of the barriers. So connecting with your support system to work through some of that self-doubt, work through some of those barriers is a way to just bring it into fruition. And ultimately you learn by doing. So I love Brad's answer about like, just start organizing, because you don't need to like wait, okay, in 2 years I'll run for office. It's like, there's impacts you can make right now. There are issues and sides you can fight on right now. You don't have to run for office tomorrow, but you can think about, what community do I need to build next month, in 2 months?
Can I say one more thing on that?
Please.
Okay. That's going to be brief because I know we have other things to talk about. But some candidates, they do kind of like have that, like, oh, I'm going to run in 2 years, like you were saying. But when you just show up and try and run for higher office and no one in the party or the community knows you, they're going to be much less likely to support you because, one, they're currently running. And if you're not helping them, what message does that set? And also, no one has vetted you. At least they'll be on. They'll have a wait and see kind of mentality as to your candidacy if they haven't seen what you're about prior to that. So I do think it is important to just get involved as soon as you can if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, like
Yes.
not waiting to be perfect.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. We know that. So like, don't wait to be perfect. Get involved now. I love it.
Exactly. Show your community what you're about before you run and just get out there. And Maria touched on this a bit earlier, but we organize not just to win elections, but to win governing power. How can we run campaigns where we build something long lasting at the end of the race? How do we keep folks engaged and use that governing power after the election is over? Brad, I feel like you could speak a little bit to this.
So I do think that what we can do is recognize where we came short. You kind of have like a referendum on the campaign, recognize the gains that you made, When I ran in 2024, it was a bloodbath for Democrats, obviously. But in District 41, I did the best that a Democratic candidate had ever did, and I did actually gain ground in a red wave. And so you can take solace in that, and knowing that building on that is going to make the area that you're running in more vulnerable to people who are running for borough council or school board or whatever they may be running for in that next year. And the case in point, in 2025, Hempfield has a Democratic majority on its school board for the first time in history. And Columbia won 2 seats. School board swept. East Hempfield has a Democratic majority for the first time in history. And that is what the environment is like going into 2026. And yes, some of that is the national environment turning against the Republicans. But I also think a lot of that is a concentrated campaign of people vigorously knocking doors for the last 3 to 4 years is finally showing fruit. And I think that if you want to flip these seats, you need to be supporting candidates who are going to get in there and do that. And even if you lose, having that data is still important. Although I know nobody really wants to lose because losing is painful and it's hard, but you can come back. Just because you lose, it doesn't mean it's the end.
Exactly. And you can keep supporting candidates, who can help you reach those goals, who can help your community gain the resources that you need because of the momentum that was gained from a campaign like yours in 2024. Shannon, you spoke to like an example of how you did this already after Fern's campaign. How have you continued to keep folks engaged?
We have a group. We meet. We all are like-minded. We believe in a bigger picture, not just one candidacy. So we all got together, there's so many different aspects of power, right? It doesn't always have to be political because I do come from a very strong mutual aid background. So doing community action and staying in touch in that level. So we have different outlets for different needs. So when it's election time, we're running people. When it's off season, we're doing food drives, clothing drives. When it's spring and summer, we're educating people on environments. So it's trying to encompass everything. It's a way of life, man. Like if you're going to change your community, it's just literally your way of life. So everything you do should be at the forefront of your mind. It shouldn't be with the objective of like anything other than you want to better your community. And you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Things do change. It erodes, the negative erodes and the light will come back. And I'm a strong believer in that. And anybody running for office, and if you lose, man, anybody working against like what's already established, and I don't mean this in a disheartening way, but there's a good chance you're going to lose the first time you run, because you don't have the resources or the knowledge, and
Yeah.
that is okay. That is just getting your feet wet. Don't, if you're not in it for ego, then understand it for what it is. It's getting your name out there. It's establishing your routine, your pattern, seeing all the things, getting to know the community in a more intimate way. So running a second, third time, even a fourth time if you have to, that perseverance is what's key. So once again, if your why is for the betterment of the community, then there should be no blows to the ego. It should just be like, okay, but we made ground. You have left a positive footprint in your campaign. I know that's something we try to do. All our money gets paid forward to the community. So we do all kinds of things with that. So just do that. Run your campaign good, leave a positive footprint, and then run again. And just keep that pattern and set that demonstration for people coming after you.
Yeah, keep gaining that ground.
Yep.
Maria, win or lose the election, we have all these people. They were helping Brad knock doors. They were making calls for Fern. How do we keep those people engaged? How do we utilize all that governing power that we've amassed during the campaign?
Yeah, Shannon already spoke to a lot of what I was going to say. So I'm like, period. I don't have to say anything else. But it really is like taking higher degrees of responsibility for your community. And to do that, you have to be clear of what you want. But I'll give some like a couple of tangible things. So In Lancaster, we're organizing against the proliferation of data centers. We're also organizing for affordability, whether that's housing or utilities, across all of our chapters. We're also organizing to raise revenue in Pennsylvania because we've got a lot of things we want for our communities. And instead of giving tax cuts to billionaires, we can just make sure billionaires pay their fair share in taxes, and not evade taxes. So we've got a whole statewide campaign to raise revenue for Pennsylvanians because what's actually happening on the federal level, all these cuts to real resources for our people, that's going to happen on the state and local level. So we have to do the opposite. We have to fight against it, which is very hard, as Shannon said. When you're fighting against the status quo, you're up against a lot, and the way you do that is by working alongside other people. And how do you work alongside other people? You build relationships. So beyond working on just a campaign, whether you're knocking doors or whether you're a campaign manager or a candidate, we got to keep building relationships with one another and share our stories about how we're being impacted, because all of that can build towards real governing power. Because I want the power, all right? And I know everyone on this call does too.
Yes, that part. We all want the power here. I want to end on a positive here. We've talked a lot about the ups and downs of a campaign. It can be really tough, but you also learn a lot and build relationships with people quickly and deeply. What is one of your favorite memories from working on a campaign? Shannon, I want to start with you for this one.
Oh my God. So Fern was getting primaried, and her opponent didn't show up for this forum, and it was her against 3 other Republicans. And we're both really passionate about the environment, but like sometimes your brain just goes to mush when you're in front of people. And her answer sounded like she didn't want cows drinking water. And like, like it was so ridiculous. And like Hannah was sitting next to me. She grabbed my hand. She's like, "It's going to be okay," because you could feel my head just like ready to detonate. And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" So afterwards, we had a joke that we're going to dress everybody that was working polls up as cows, saying we demand accessibility to water and hydration. So like when we bring up environmental issues now, we're like, okay, Fern's went okay with everything, but just not the cows having water, because her brain just went to mush. She was trying to talk about like, the deforestation and like, all the things that go on with factory farming, but it just came out. So it was just like the cows are drinking too much water. It was so dumb, but it was hilarious. So that was my favorite part. Literally one of my best moments on the campaign.
Shannon, I have to share with you that my favorite part of Fern's campaign was the "Man, I Love Fern" shirts.
Oh, the
Amazing.
MILF.
MILF.
They're going to be rolling out again. Yep.
I'm gonna get one. I'm
Awesome. Yeah.
obsessed.
We've had people from all over the country order those. We're always laughing when we see the addresses. We're like,
They're
all right,
so good.
cool. Yeah. That
I
was all
love it.
Fern. That was her idea.
Love that so much. Maria, what about you? What's one of your favorite memories on a campaign?
Yeah, I mean, since Shannon's on the call, what came to mind was honestly, like I was working one of the polls with her daughter, and she was handing out the campaign literature. And I think, Shannon, you were like, I think she thinks that when someone accepts the literature, that means they're definitely voting for Fern. So she thought that like every lit that she was handing out was a vote, which was adorable. And just like having kids on the campaign trail is so cool. Like when I see candidates knocking doors with their kids, I think that's awesome. But you guys made the campaign so fun. Like they had these like bracelets and hoodies and glow sticks. Like we got to make it fun, right? Radical joy.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to stand out. Yeah, she did really good. She was funny. She's going around school and she'll come home and be like, "I got Allison to vote for Fern." And like, she's only in 2nd grade now. And this was kindergarten when she was working the polls with us. And, but it's adorable. And I don't know. I just want her to feel empowered in her own voice at a young age as well. Yeah,
I love that. Future candidate in the making. Brad, I
she
want to
really
end.
is.
I love it. I love it. She has the right parent for that, for sure. Brad, I want to end with you, my friend. What is one of your favorite memories from your campaign?
So it's one specific thing, but it's also a number of things, if that makes sense, but I'll explain it. So one of the things that I like to do as a candidate and in general is I like to take people on the campaign outside of the campaign or the electoral space. So I like to get people at barbecues, at bars, at house parties, and I just want to see who they are as people in a setting where there's like relatively low pressure. Because one of the things that I do, like, you will not see me drinking at a campaign event. I don't do that. But at a house party, I might, let it hang out a little bit. But so we go to the bar after our campaign meetings typically. And does everyone here know Rob Mashagna?
Of
Yeah, you know Rob.
course.
So he was creating some memes at my expense, as he frequently does. And one of the things that they were posting was bread for PA. So they would change my logo to a loaf of bread, and it would have my name on the bread, and then it would have Est 2024 under it. And I thought that was pretty funny. So I actually spit a drink out when I had discovered that. That was a little bit embarrassing, but I thought it was a good moment.
That's
Among many.
hilarious.
I love that. And Rob is a professional in the meme making space. So that tracks. That tracks. Thank you all so much for coming on the News You Can Use podcast and chatting with us today. I think I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody listening is going to learn a lot. And I'm excited to be able to support everyone as we go forward into another election cycle. Yay. Thanks for being here, friends. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for the
Thank
opportunity.
you.
Yeah. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you again to Brad, Shannon, and Maria for joining us. That's it for this month's News You Can Use. If you enjoyed our show, please follow up and share with your friends and your enemies. And be sure to come back next year to hear about all things Pennsylvania, people, power, and politics. Until then, this is your host, Edwin. And don't forget, Pennsylvania is for all of us. We'll see you in the streets.
This episode of News You Can Use was produced by PA Stands Up members Liz Levins and Auburn Binkley, with Director of Narrative Strategy Edwin Stubbs and Digital Organizer Hannah Hendershon. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, please email us at comms@pastandsup.org. See you next year.